The stars align, the stories cold, a spark ignites, come hear it all.
Hello everyone, this is Sarah from the Kahani Suno podcast. कैसे हैं आप लोग आज? I am once again very excited to bring you the part 2 of my story, Till Death Brings Us Together. But before that, let's recap the part 1, the togetherness. In part 1, we got introduced to the characters of this story, Hassan and his wife Samreen, their 2 daughters, Sonia and Sophia. We also got a peek into their house, the lifestyle that they lead, and were also invited to the 25th silver wedding anniversary of Hassan and Samreen. Everything was going great until the appearance of an old woman who accused Hassan of stealing her son's life. The part ended with Samreen exhorting Hassan to come clean with his daughters and let them know the truth. So let's continue from there on. In part 2, The Death, we start off about 27 years ago. Yes, the same 27 years ago that the old woman referred to during her conversation with Samreen. We are looking at now another house. It is not as opulent. It's a smaller house. We also have another couple. They're not as aged, a younger couple. They are also in the kitchen where another conversation is going on. This is not as mature conversation as we saw earlier. This seems to be young love, so full of hope and vitality and completely different from a mature love, right? So the man says that Hassan is going to arrive next week, and the woman questions, is it that time of the year again? Yes, he says, Thanksgiving, our annual ritual. A pause settles between them as she says, I thought you might give it a pass this year, considering that I'm very pregnant. She has one hand resting on her belly. I would have, Sam, you know that, but this is our 10th year, a decade of turkey hunting. Can you believe that? She says, I know, baby, I understand, but her voice trails off. Well, he replies easily, you're surrounded by family. I'm glad we live in a city where a family lives so close, yours and mine both. Everyone is competing to help you, you know that. A couple of days away shouldn't be an issue, right? It's not about an issue, she says. Then what is it? It's just that I'll miss you. She ends. I'll miss you too, but in my defense, it's only 2 days out of 365. You could grant me that. 2 days too many, she says, laughing. And just like that, it's decided. It seems like even young love needs a breather from time to time. Don't we all? Anyways, a week later, we join the couple again as the man once again addresses his wife and says, Sam, Hassan's here. Hassan, how have you been? She asks. The same as I left around the time I left last year. Hassan says, you on the other hand look even more radiant. Is that another way of saying I look fat? She jokes. No, he laughs. That's my way of saying congratulations. Rehan tells me baby number 2 is arriving any day now. Yes, she smiles, any day now. Rehan and Hassan had met in graduate school. Once inseparable, then life intervened as it always does. While Hassan had chased horizons, cities blurring into one another, passports filling up with stamps, Rehan had stayed back. He chose a steady job in his hometown with familiar streets and family nearby. Hassan, on the other hand, chose to become a speaker, and he was now a very well-known celebrity speaker who jettisoned around the world. One fine day, one of Hassan's speaking engagements brought him to the city where Rehan lived. Samreen happened to live in the same town too. She had applied and won for a raffle for lunch with Hassan, an afternoon that was meant to be impressive, fleeting, and ultimately forgettable. Rehan, however, was in attendance that day, attending his friend's speaking engagement, and joined them for lunch. He fell in love with her almost immediately and asked her out almost as soon. He was like that, spontaneous and doing what his heart told him, throwing caution to the wind. What began as dating turned without much resistance into a long-term commitment. A year later, Samreen and Rehan were married. Hassan liked to boast that he had introduced them, and Rehan never denied it. In fact, Rehan often said he owed his life and wife to Hassan. Rehan was always the dramatic one, quick to laughter, quick to feeling, so unlike Hassan, who was measured, deliberate, and cold, as we've already seen. We know Hassan, right? Maybe he was like that because boardrooms, hotels, and conference rooms had become Hassan's natural habitat. A sought-after speaker, always moving, always arriving, leaving, talking, rich, magnetic, and perpetually restless. Applause followed him wherever he went, but it never seemed to hold him in one place. Rehan was the exception. He was the one person who pulled Hassan away from the noise and provided him with the anchor that his life so desperately needed. If only it was for a week each year. Every Thanksgiving, they would meet, they retreated together. The first part of the week was always spent at Hassan's mountaintop cabin, which was around 200 miles from where Rehan lived. There were no crowds there, no stages, just long conversations, catching on each other's lives, shared silences, and rifles slung over shoulders. They hunted wild turkeys together, they cooked and ate, and they caught up on a year's worth of living. And for those few days, Hassan almost looked like a man who belonged somewhere. They would bring the turkeys home and have a Thanksgiving before Hassan would fly out on Monday. Rehan, Hassan said lightly, "Are you sure this is the best weekend for a trip? Something tells me your wife might not be too thrilled about this. I don't want her hating on me." "She's fine," Rehan says quickly before Samreen can say anything. "I promised I'd make it up to her. And besides, we need the turkeys. It's tradition. It's our 10th year. We can't stop now." Hassan turns to Samreen. "Samreen?" he asks. She hesitates, but only for a moment. "It's fine," she says in her familiar drawl. "I don't think I'd hear the end of it otherwise, Hassan. This ritual started long before I was part of Rehan's life. And besides, Mama is arriving tonight to spend the week with me." "Oh, Mrs. Noman's joining us," Hassan asks, turning to Rehan. "Samreen and Mama get along very well, and Mama will never leave a chance of being with Sonia, her only granddaughter. Mama has been gracious enough to give me company. Yes, you guys go on, enjoy killing your birds, and we shall enjoy catching up on gossip," Samreen says. Hassan smiles. "You're a good sport, Samreen. Rehan's the luckiest man in the world." "That I am, thanks to you," Rehan says, slipping an arm around her shoulders. The next morning, there is a truck idling in the driveway where hunting gear is being loaded carefully and deliberately. Two women are watching, one who's heavily pregnant, the other one older, holding a 2-year-old on her hip. "Don't hesitate to call," Rehan says. "We're only a couple of 100 miles away." "Please do," Hassan adds. "You won't be spoiling anything. You come first, always." "Don't worry," Samreen laughs. "Mama's here. I'm in competent hands." "Bye, Mama," Rehan says, hugging his mother. "I love you," he tells Samreen, kissing her. "Bye, Daddy," little Sonia shouts as the truck pulls away. "Bye, lovely ladies." Hassan is the last to leave. 2 days pass, quietly, normally, nothing out of the ordinary happens. The boys are set to arrive the next morning as the girls retire to their bedrooms that night. Then the phone rings in the middle of the night. It rings way too long, enough to make up Mrs. Noman. "Who is it?" she asks, already awake, already standing in the doorway. Samreen doesn't answer. She slides to the floor. The receiver slips from her hand, hanging there, swinging slightly as a voice continues, steady and distant. "Samreen, are you there? Summer, are you okay? Somewhere far away, morning is getting ready to dawn." The ambulance arrives quickly. Mrs. Noman sits in silence. Sophia, restless in her lap, she keeps looking towards the road, hoping to see headlights, hoping the men are already on their way back. Samreen has gone into labor. The ambulance has taken her to the hospital. The truck finally arrives a couple of hours later. Mrs. Noman moves faster than she has in years. Hassan steps out from the driver's side. "Hassan, where is Rehan?" Hassan freezes. "Didn't Samreen tell you?" "Tell me what? Where is Samreen?" he asks, concerned. "She's at the hospital. I haven't spoken to her since the call last night. She just collapsed and they took her away." Hospital? Which one? He's back in the truck before she finishes the sentence. Samreen lies in the bed, pale, exhausted, a bassinet besides her, mother and baby asleep. Hassan arrives as a nurse approaches him. We've been waiting for family, she says sternly. Are you the husband? Samir nods. Good, the doctor will see you shortly. Another girl, Sophia, mother and baby, both doing well. The standard words and assurances are sent back and forth. Can I see Samreen? He asks. Where is he? Samreen asks the moment he enters. Tell me, this is a nightmare, she sobs. I wish I could, he says quietly. Oh, Samreen, there is nothing more I'd like than for all this to be a nightmare that I could wake up from. Hassan seems to be doing all he could to hold himself together. I don't understand, Hassan. I'm so sorry, Samreen. I'm so sorry. The days that follow are a blur. Rehan is dead. It was an accident, it is said. A rifle slipped from his hands while it was being cleaned. It was loaded and it fired accidentally. That was it. Instant, they said. He didn't suffer. Everyone was careful to add that part, as though it were meant to soften the blow. Gone in a moment, like a light switched off, in an instant. But who was that supposed to comfort? A mother who had held his hand through fevers and failures, triumphs and heartbreaks, who had watched him become a man only to lose him before she could grow old beside him. In an instant? A wife who had brought their child into the world on the very day she had lost him, joy and grief colliding in the same breath. In an instant? A child who would grow up knowing her father only through photographs, stories, and the ache of an absence she could never name. In an instant? How do you explain an instant to this lifetime of loss that a family faces when a loved one passes away? Hassan had immediately called for an ambulance. He had tried in vain to stop the bleeding. He had stayed with Rehan until the end. He was the one who had made the call to Samreen. He came back as soon as he was allowed to. Families flew in. Papers needed to be signed. There were questions that needed to be answered. There was the police. There was the insurance. There were so many formalities. And of course, Hassan handled it all, as always, calm, efficient, and in control. Samreen had no choice but to lean on him, and she did learn to lean on him for everything. He was always there after all. He was supposed to leave after Thanksgiving. He didn't. He stayed till New Year's. After that, he traveled back and forth. Then less, and then finally, not at all. There was always something that needed his attention. The children, the house, money. There were many decisions that needed to be made. And eventually, travel was no longer an option. He quit his high-flying speaker career. He interviewed locally and took a job in the same city. Around the same time, Samreen's mother fell ill. Cancer. It took a lot out of Samreen and her family as her mother navigated the world of chemotherapy and radiation. Loss seemed to be following loss. There was no space to even grieve, only to endure and go on. And for that, Hassan was there, always there, ready to give that helping hand. One day, it seemed very natural for him to ask her to marry him. It was about 2 years later from that day. He got on his knee, held her hands, looked her into the eyes and said, Summer, please marry me. She hesitated. She told herself it was guilt, maybe gratitude, circumstances even, until she realized that it was none of the above. Hassan did not seem to want to be with her out of pity or sympathy. He appeared to be genuinely in love with her. For 2 years, he had been there for her entirely. He had completely turned around his life to be there for her, and more importantly, for her daughters. She watched their gleeful faces when he'd come to see them, loaded with gifts. He was such a natural caregiver that she wondered why he had chosen to remain single. Had he never found the woman he loved? Had he, finally, now found her? The world reacted predictably when she accepted. Her family accepted it with relief. Her friends rejoiced. Some of them not so much. Some of them reluctantly agreed. His family was a different case altogether. Whispers came first, then accusations, then anger and hatred. Finally, they filed the case. Investigations followed as Hassan was charged and then cleared. Forensics agreed that there was nothing to question. It was an accident, plain and simple. Samreen was also dragged through dirt. The family she had called her own turned on her. She suffered a complete nervous breakdown. At that time, Hassan made a decision. They would move to a new city, far from everyone, cutting Rehan's family off completely. They would leave the city that had given them each other but had taken so much more away from them. It might continue to take more if they lingered. Hassan adopted Sophia and Sonia, legally and completely. Ties were cut, stories were simplified, the girls were told Hassan was their father, an orphan with no family. They never knew Rehan or his family. He was erased completely. No pictures, no mention of him ever. Silence filled the room as the story ended. Hassan sat, head lowered. Samreen stood beside him, one hand cradling his head. We are not proud of what we did, but we felt there was no option. We were just doing what we thought was the best for you girls. For the first time, Samreen takes charge as Hassan hugs her tightly. Sonia and Sophia step forward and embrace their parents. Tears flow, and once again, the picture looks whole, perfect, and restored. Is it? Okay, so let's get on with our Q&A session. Today we have a Gen Z guest with us, Jade. Hey, Jade, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you here, especially because you're our first Gen Z guest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm honestly excited to be here.
We are excited to have you. So tell me, how are you liking the story so far?
Honestly, I'm loving it, Sarah. But this part, wow. I felt like it didn't give me time to breathe. Everything just kept happening, one thing after another. I felt like I was on a train hurtling through a tunnel with no end in sight.
That's a powerful image. I love that you said that. Did it feel overwhelming in a good way, of course, or maybe a stressful way?
Honestly, both. Like, emotionally, it worked. I was hooked. But at the same time, I kept thinking, wait, what just happened? Before I could process one loss, another one hit. So it was pretty intense.
That's an interesting take on it because that was actually very intentional on my part. But I also wanted to hear your point. Do you think I should maybe slow down the pace a bit?
Well, yeah, maybe. I think maybe adding more description would help. Sometimes I just wanted to sit with Samreen's emotions a little longer, and the speed made sense for the story, but as a listener, I was trying to keep up with my feelings and the plot.
That sounds fair. And honestly, that tension is exactly what Samreen is experiencing, right? No time to grieve, no space to process, just survival mode. It almost is like that. We can't expect life to pause just because you have trauma. It seems that life stacks the trauma.
Yeah, honestly, I see where you're coming from. That makes a lot of sense. But because the way it's written, it feels like grief doesn't arrive gently, it more so like crashes in.
Wow, that's exactly what this part is meant to convey, especially for women, right? For mothers in families where you're expected to, hold it together. I wanted the listener to feel robbed of closure the same way Simreen is being subjected to.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's why it stuck with me. Like, even when something good happens, the baby, like, for example, the baby being born,
Mhm.
it's tangled with something so horrible. There's, like, no clean moment.
I don't know about you guys, but at my stage of life, I do feel that life rarely gives us clean moments, does it?
No, like, honestly. And I think what really hit me was how quietly everything changed. There was no dramatic villain speech. It was just decisions made one after another, and suddenly an entire truth disappears.
That silence is very important. As you know, silences can sometimes be way louder than confessions. Let me again ask you another questions. Did you sympathize with them or did you judge them? Hassan and Simreen, I mean.
Truthfully, both. Part of me understood why they did what they did, but another part of me was like, you literally erased someone. And that's huge and it's scary.
I'm glad you felt that conflict, Jade. This story isn't just asking for approval, it's more like asking for your understanding. In the beginning, I said that this is about the many shades of love. And of course, moral gray shades are uncomfortable, right? Especially across generations.
Yeah, I think for Gen Z, transparency is everything. So the secrecy feels heavy, but I also get that their world wouldn't allow softness or nuance.
That's beautifully said. Different generations survive differently, I guess. Thank you, Jade, for your honesty, your perspective, and for holding space for discomfort.
Thank you. This story made me feel things, and I mean that as a compliment.
And that's all a writer can hope for. Thank you, Jade, for coming in and giving us your valuable views as a Gen Z listener. And listeners, thank you for listening to part two. And I will be again coming back to you with part three, which I have titled Till Death Does Us Apart. Thank you so much. Take care.
Where dreams reside.